Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we welcome you all for this session on non-conventional avenues of fundraising, MSMEs, and emerging corporates. This session is organized under the aegis of Banking, Finance, and Corporate Affairs Expert Committee. The session is the committee is chaired by Dr. K.V. Om Prakash, Founder Director, Consentia Consultancy, Mr. Joydeep Nag, Head of Tech Enabling Center, Amrita Vidya Peetam, and Mr. Venkat Krishnan, he is the Executive Vice President and CFO, Tata Hitachi Construction. On behalf of the Chamber, we express our sincere thanks for the distinguished and eminent speakers for accepting our invitation to address at this session. We extend a hearty welcome to Mr. Gopinath Rao, Deputy Director, MSME Development Institute, Bangalore. Welcome you, sir. We also extend a warm welcome to Mr. Vivek Acharya, Chief Manager, Business Development, National Stock Exchange of India Limited, Ms. Prachi Jia, Assistant Vice President, Merchant Banking, Hem Securities Limited, and Mr. Himamshu Srivatsava, Manager, National Stock Exchange of India Limited. Thank you, Mr. Himamshu, for facilitating this session. Now I would request Dr. Om Prakash to set the theme. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful session of NFC organized event along with BCIC. And I welcome Deputy Director Mr. R. Gopinath Rao of MSME Development Institute, Mr. Vivek Acharya, Chief Manager, Business Development, NSC, Ms. Prachi Gia, AVP, Merchant Bankers, Hen Securities, Himanshu Srivastav, Manager, NFC. This event or session is being organized to understand more about the preparedness and the alternate opportunities for fundraising for the MSMEs. So today, after the COVID situation, many of the corporates, service providers, MSMEs, SMEs are in different space of business execution and are struggling for finance. And that's why we have assembled here to brainstorm as to how the MSME can look at alternative options to create value proposition than to bank on debt or other schemes. So this is where we are coming from, and we would like to have this session as an interactive session so that the MSMEs benefit the way forward, as the experts are around here and they will throw light on how alternate mechanisms are available for raising funds. So at this stage, I would request Mr. Gopinath Rao to address few words about the situation where MSMEs are operating and what is the financial needs of them, whether it is long term, whether it is short term, or a mere working capital. So he's the best person because he's day to day dealing with MSMEs and SMEs, and he will be the best person as to how the preparedness is there for the MSMEs to take up this alternative methods which we are going to talk about, which is being brought in, the value proposition being brought by NSC. Now, a brief introduction of Mr. Gopinath. So he is IDGS and designated as Deputy Director, MSME Development Institute. Basically, he's a technical person. He's a BTech textiles and over more than 10 years in private companies like Binny, Gokaldas, Shahi Exports, Sunwear. Later on joined as MSME Development Institute, and from there on, I think he is almost there with them for more than 2 decades, and he's been a very popular figure in MSME sector, and almost all the MSME owners, the proprietors, the CEOs all know him personally, and he's been a person who also gets into training, development of MSME. And we would like to hear from you, Mr. Gopinath. Over to you. And I welcome everybody on behalf of BCIC and HEM Securities and NSC. And I also recognize Mr. Joydeep and Venkatakrishnan, the co-chairman and the mentor of BCIC Expert Committee. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, sir, for introducing his introduction. And thank you, the BCCI, to organizing such a wonderful program during this period, which is one of the most important subject where all MSMEs need to know what are the avenues are available for fundraising in order to keep their business activity more vibrant and active. And during this pandemic situation, we all know the businesses, the manufacturing, service sectors, everything was badly hit. And government also tried to support the MSMEs through packages, ECL 1, ECL 2, emergency credit line, by announcing 3 lakh crores and later increasing to 4.5 lakh crores. So as on that, at present, around 3 lakh crores has been utilized by the MSMEs across India. And looking at the figure and present situation, it sees that the MSME is slowly bouncing back. But still, I feel a lot of, recent the interaction with the many MSMEs in industrial areas, industrial estates, I found still they are facing some problem in the areas of market linkages or funding supports, and maybe from even delayed payment from their buyers. So these 3 main factors which is affecting the MSMEs now. So now earlier, the traditional the financing supports through government schemes, the bankers now it takes a lot of time. I've seen practically the smaller bankers and delay in sanctioning and the documentations. So a lot of things are happening, but in spite of that, the bankers taking the long time in sanctioning the loan to the bank, SMEs, has badly hit the functioning of their activities. So now it's the right time for MSMEs to look at the other alternatives, how to raise the fundings from the market. Recently, we are seeing a lot of private companies which are listed in the exchange. They have started raising the fundraising through IPOs. Recent the well-known brands, product manufacturers, they started coming out with fundraising through IPOs, and there is a good response also. Your horse subscribed, and MSME also should look into these options, because MSME is the only sector where it finds a lot of problems in getting the funds, because it has been the one-man show and having limited resources. The fundraising becomes very difficult. So at that time, the government schemes are also helping, but to limited extent, the expansion could not be done. So the opportunities are huge, because India is now slowly bouncing back. The If you see the forex reserve, it is around $650 billion. A lot of work orders have started coming in. The industry, the major industries, large scale industries have already started functioning well. Now it is right time for MSMEs to look at the fundraising, fund support. Though the government schemes like credit guarantee fund trust scheme, which limits up to 2 crore, it may not be sufficient. But there are certain SMEs which they want to invest more than that. In such cases, they have to become a part of this IPO, market listings. So unless they become the part of the system, they cannot raise the fund. So again, here it depends upon their market valuations, their product, their demand, and their goodwill in the market, and how they are able to sustain the business. So all these parameters are their balance sheets and their the progress, the technology adoption. So all these things will definitely help the SMEs to raise the funds. But any investors who want to invest in the SMEs, they look majorly on how the industry, how the unit is functioning, what is their background, how their balance sheet, whether it is a profit making or a loss making, everything they look into the points. So looking at that, investors always see them. Today we are seeing the startup, lot of startups are coming, and they are coming into unicorns, around the 35 to 40 unicorns. And now we are happy to announce that, because in India it is ultimate destinations. So a lot of startups have started coming out, and it is not challenging for MSMEs to grade themselves. It is a challenge issue. So it's a right opportunity also at the same time. So this pandemic has created not only the bad, effect for business, but also has created a lot of opportunities to find out alternate ways. So it has really opened our eyes. So MSME has the opportunities to look into this, and the government is now lot of schemes are also started coming in. Earlier we had this credit link capital subsidy scheme where the subsidy for the technology upgradation. Now it is in the process of revised because of the SMEs. We have champion port, we have Udyam registration. If you see the data and the SME, there are about 6.5 crore SME units across India. Out of that, around 56 to 57 lakhs units have registered in our portal. And if you see the figure, the micro units are 85%. 85% units are micro units, and remaining 5 to 6% are small scale industries, and only 2 to 3% are medium scale industries. So looking at the figure, if you see the micro units, micro enterprises playing a major role in bringing a good ecosystem in the manufacturing sectors. So it needs a model of funding support. So now these micro industries need the fundraising opportunities. The investors should come forward, and even whether it may be angel investors or from the venture capitalists. So whoever they have to take care of that, because micro industries needs a funding support, and being important in the economy of the country, the industry, micro industries and small scale industries, and the government of India now trying to come out with the new schemes, particularly for micro and small enterprise, because some guidelines is going to be changed. And recently our change of the definition, micro limits, the investment plant and machinery, as well as involvement, including turnover component. So both has played a major role in increasing number of SMEs. And also, the government is now also limited the global tender up to 200 crores, which is a very good opportunity for SMEs to showcase their strength and capability. And more and more SMEs are now, earlier they were major industries, now large scale industries. Now they are coming to the micro and small enterprise. The scope has increased, the opportunity has increased. So India being the developing economy after China, so ultimately more and more industries are coming out there. Ultimately they want to use the Indian place for developing their economics. So looking at this, organizing this type of programs with the association like BCCI, and definitely will help a lot of MSMEs. And I hope all the speakers who are there in the panel, they will definitely able to throw out some important points and the fundraising ways and means, so that the SMEs who are part of this program definitely will help them. And in MSME side, we have schemes, almost all of them are aware of it, like CCTV SME schemes and so like that. So the schemes are there, but at the same time, parallelly, we have to develop an opportunity for SMEs to develop. I mean, generate more funding raising opportunities. So I think the out of the line. So like the raising the venture capitalists or angel investors. So you have to look into that one to raise the fund for the SMEs. So with these 2 points, I thank the BCCT for giving an opportunity, and I hope this session will have a very good impact on the SMEs to know the more information on the fundraising pattern, which is very important and vital at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gopinath. Over to you, Prachi.
So before am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you are audible.
Okay. So before I start, I would like Himanshu ji just to give a brief about the NSE SME platform name NSE Emerge. Himanshu ji, over to you, and then I will take it ahead.
Thanks, Prachi. Am I audible?
Yes.
Audible. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Prachi. So first of all, thanks Gopinath Rao sir for always being there. In fact, with his support, we have done several events to create awareness about the different financial products which is there to support MSMEs. So and apart from that, thanks to all the participants for giving us a gift of your valuable time. And special thanks to entire team of Bangalore Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Mr. Om Prakash ji, Mr. Prithvi, Ms. for coordinating this entire event. Now coming down to what is the structure of this entire event. So today we are going to talk about two major things. One is at the stock exchange, as I hope my slide is visible to you. On one side, we are having something, a platform which is catering to fundraising. Okay, so any company who's looking forward for fundraising, what is the options they are having, available through exchange platform. Second one is risk management. So, so in one side, increasing the your top line and your profitability through the support of exchange platform. Second one, saving or utilizing those money in a best proper way. So now the entire session is going to be in two parts. First half an hour will be taken by Mr. Vivek. So who's gonna more talk about what is forex risk management. Now quickly to tell you what is the what you can expect out of this session. So today we are seeing there are lots of companies who are having a major or minor amount of import or export in their organization. So what happened when we are seeing there is so much volatility in market, so much fluctuation in let's say different sort of foreign currencies, referring let's say USD INR, you must be seeing came in last couple of months, the way it is fluctuating. So let's say if I am a importer, okay, or if I am an exporter, it is very tedious task for me to forecast or to project my entire balance sheet. Or let's say if I am, so for example, quickly to tell you, okay, as an exporter, where today USD INR rate is let's say 74 rupees. Now by that time, let's say after 30 or 60 days when I'm getting my payment through my client, now on that particular date, if USD INR will move from 74 to 73 rupees, then it is like a directly hit on on my balance sheet or on my profit for on the basis of 1 rupees on each dollar. Likewise, so basically as a company, it is very tough. So let's say if I want to project something, okay, what is out of this entire sale, what is the profit I can expect, then it is quite difficult for me. So typically the companies who are already using any sort of risk mechanism. So in India, we are having two platforms. One is a platform which is provided by your bank, which is known as your OTC market, over the counter, where typically you are going and booking your forwards. Okay. And through that particular platform, you can hedge your forex risk. Likewise, what we have seen, there are lots of companies who are not aware that they can also use exchange platform, which is known as exchange currency derivative segment, to hedge your forex risk. Now, this particular platform, when you are doing transaction, it is similar to bank platform with certain additional advantage to units. Okay. Now, this platform is known as future and option, F&O. It's simple derivative. If you are already active, let's say if you are using any sort of or trading in any sort of derivative, here the just the underlying will change. Okay, so underlying is going to be currency. Now, if you are, what is the benefit if you are using or hedging through exchange platform? So one word, if I'll tell you, if you'll ask me to tell you, see, when you are dealing through exchange platform, the best part is this platform will provide you complete transparency. So the means of, I mean to say by saying complete transparency. So for exchange, it doesn't matter when you are trading using exchange platform. So there can be a company whose maybe total exposure in terms of import or export, whether it is in whether it is 1 CR, whether it is 10,000 CR, it doesn't matter. So everybody is going to play on a same ground. Okay, so there is something known as markup and all, but when you are dealing with your bank, okay, so all the platform is having their own advantage, but when you are dealing with your bank, so again, sometimes there are companies who are getting a a markup like 25 quarter paise, 1 paise, 5 paise, 10 paise. It depends on, obviously, as per the banking structure, their call. It depends on your relationship. It depends on your volume and all. But when you are dealing in a at exchange platform, so we don't have any concept of markup. So for us, in that way, it doesn't matter what is the volume companies. There can be a company who's hedging even in lakhs. Okay, and the rates or the benefit what you are getting, it is similar, which is given to the large corporate. So that is coming under risk management platform. Now details of that particular platform will be covered by my colleague, Mr. Vivek. Now coming down to the second part of the session, which will be covered by Ms. Prachi. That particular platform is known as NSE Emerge. So as Gopinath sir already told, today when we are looking at MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises, no doubt it is backbone of Indian economy. Today, if you are seeing contribution in export close to 45%, if you'll see on manufacturing output close to 40%, close to 65 to 70% of the employment in India, it is generated from SME sectors. Now SMEs majorly what they are, if you'll ask me, probably 2 to 3 challenges companies are facing. One is obviously a fundraising. Second one, utilizing that fund, okay, to get a good and caliber employees for their company and retaining them for long term. Now let's say I have got a fund, I am having a good employee, but how to reach out to my potential customer? So that's a visibility. So through this particular platform, we are trying to cater, or we are trying to address all these 3 questions. So basically, you must be knowing, in India, we are having a platform known as your, platform, which is our main board, where today you are seeing companies like Tata, Wipro, L&T, Infosys, and all, they are listed. Now, post listing, they can directly access equity market. So now seeing the potential in SME or MSME sector, way back, government decided to have a separate sort of setup for, probably fundraising for SME sectors. So that's where in the year 2012, SEBI, which is our regulatory body, they have given us a guideline to start a separate platform for SME sectors. So that's where 2012 we started a separate platform for SMEs. If you'll ask me, globally, in there are lots of countries like there is a platform known as AIMS in UK, TSX in Canada, James in Hong Kong, Mothers in Japan. Likewise, so all these companies are there, which is to cater SME companies only. Now coming down to what is the structure in Indian SME platform. So first question is, what is SME? Okay, so when we are talking about SMEs, we are not looking at your investment in your plant and machinery or official equipment for the companies which are in, let's say, service sector, and we don't look at your turnover. Simply a company which is having a track record of 3 years, out of which they are having a positive cash accruals for a period of 2 years with positive net worth. Okay, that's a one criteria. Second one, the post issue paid up capital in case of private limited company. Okay, so there is no restriction for proprietorship or partnership. They can also proceed. But in case of if you are a private limited company, so your post issue paid up capital should not exceed. I'm not talking about turnover. I'm only talking about post issue paid up capital. That should not exceed 25 CR. It can be anything less than 25 CR. If it is in even lakhs also, no problem. Okay, but if it is exceeding 25 CR, then you can only go to the main board. You cannot approach SME platform. So that's a simple criteria how we filter a company, whether company is coming under SME or not. As I told, this platform came 2012. If you'll talk about the regulatory body, it is same, which is SEBI. Now, as I told you, it's a separate segment. Again, I'm repeating to normally when we are talking about IPO, the first thing which will click in our mind, okay, IPO, it is something where if I need a fund like 100 CR, 500 CR, 1000 CR or so, then I'll talk about public issue. Okay, it's not at all like that. It's a separate segment. It is here we are only talking about small, medium, or emerging corporate company, a company which is having a good potential to move on the ladder. Okay, so this particular platform is there for those sort of companies. Now the best part is here that companies will come under SME, but the trading of your shares is there at the same platform where you are seeing all the large corporate, which means when even if there is a small growth in your company, it is being highlighted in a big way. Okay, so trading terminal is same, and there are lots of intermediaries in which is in they are involved in this entire process, which is your trading member, merchant banker, and all. So they are going to be same as main board. Now, just to share quickly with you how this platform is doing. So till date, we are having close to 229 companies on pan India level, which is listed at our NSE SME platform. Okay, which is having total market capitalization of more than 25,000 CR. Now, total capital raised by all these companies is close to more than your 3,400 CR. Now, next point is important. The average issue size of or average amount as an IPO what is being raised by this company simply, that is 15 CR, 15.23 CR. So average issue size of these companies is 15.23 CR. What is the minimum amount you can raise through NSE Emerge platform? That is 4 CR. And what is the maximum? There is no upper cap. If your company is having the potential, you are getting a valuation, you can go even up to 100 CR or more than that. We are having companies from different sectors. So there are totally your more than 20 sectors from where we are having companies. So we are having companies listed with us from pharma, manufacturing, IT, hospitality, and different other line of activities. Companies are there. Now, if we'll see, one of the best part of this particular platform is once you are listed at NSE Emerge platform, okay, the beauty is a subject of completing 2 years at NSE Emerge platform, we will give you option to migrate from SME to main board. Okay, so main board doors are open for you. Now, when you want to step in, when you want to move from SME to main board, it is up to you. So without any hassle. So let's say today any company is getting listed at our SME platform, they can smoothly migrate from SME to main board. So you can see close to almost 82 companies out of this 229 companies have already migrated from SME to main board. So these are the certain figures which I wanted to share with you in terms of how this particular platform is growing. Now, what should be the right time to approach this particular platform? What should be the, what you can expect? What is the process? So SEBI, they have given lots of cushion for the companies who are coming under SME and willing to list. So what is the regulatory guideline? All those things will be covered in second part of this session. I will request you all feel free to ask any questions, any doubt, whatsoever will come in your mind after completing both the session. You can write down. We'll try our best to help you out. So with that, I will request now my colleague, Mr. Vivek, to take over the session. Vivek.
Hi, audible?
You can share your, yeah, please. Vivek, over to you.
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Mr. Rao, BCIC, and their expert committee for giving us opportunity to speak on this platform and introducing our offerings to all of your members. So to start with, see, I know this session is majorly on the emerging fundraising side, but there is another aspect of the business which we cannot ignore, which is the risk management part of the business. See, fundraising is important part, integral part of the business. Without fund, it's very difficult to produce things, market your things, overall activity of the business. Even if you are able to get funds from the Google, Facebook, or any of the biggest investor in the world, Saudi Aramco, or anybody in the world, and if you are not able to manage your company risk, you are not able to safeguard your margins, safeguard your fluctuations, market fluctuations. So this whole funding will go for a toss. This will be your capital. All this funding will be consumed against those risk management. Filling up those losses. So for any company, irrespective of their size, risk management is the most important part of their regular business, day-to-day business. Yeah, funding is definitely one for your expansion of your business, for your growth and everything. But maintaining the existing business is also an important part. Okay, so I'll just give you a brief background. First, I'll just share some presentation with you on that, on exchange-traded currency derivative. So, and with that, I will share a brief background about the product, how it got started, and where it is standing now, and how any corporate can benefit it by using this product. I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah, I hope it is visible.
Yes, Vivek, it is.
Okay, thank you. So this word derivative sounds very big. Most of the people in a layman language, derivative, no, Baba. We are far off the derivative. So any business who is into import, export, or the hedging of their exposures, whosoever is using the forward contract, yes, forward is also kind of a derivative. So the name is only big. The utility is very simple of this product. And way back in 2008, everybody knows, those who are in the market since since before that also. So the whole derivative chaos happened in Indian FX market, when the many corporate has defaulted on their derivative obligations, which they have committed on their foreign exchange hedging part. So that yeah. So that after that, so RBI thought, RBI went to the end users of those products and they said, like, we were not transparent, we were not aware about the product, what is that and what are the nitty-gritties, risk profiling of that particular product. So because there was no transparency in the system at that point in time, wherein people were able to see the prices, what are being traded, the proper risk profiling was not done to the client. Plus, if there is a fluctuation, banks are just waiting for the maturity to slaughter. Is a very harsh word in that way, but wait till the maturity to execute those contracts. Clients are bound to carry those contracts till the time of maturity. That is the proper way to put it. So then RBI came up with the idea of introducing this currency derivative on the exchanges, just to provide many facilities which were on the OTC platform, which was not able banks were not able to offer to their client. So it is not a again there's a most important part we need to understand. It is not a competitor, and it is not a substitute. It's a complementary product of your existing setup. So the whole idea of this setup, what RBI thought, we should not interfere any of the existing setup of the client. It should be an add-on to their existing setup. It should increase the value in the business. So that is the whole intention of this product. and it is most of the corporate, especially MSME, SMEs are getting benefit of this product. I know many, even individual participants, proprietorship concerns, those turnover is probably a crore of their export or import turnover is probably of $50,000 per annum, or probably say $20,000 per annum. That small players are also getting benefited from this kind of product. So obviously, Reliance of the world, the TCS or the Wipro, the largest of the companies of the world are getting benefited in all the markets. Everybody knows. Everybody says, "Arey, wo to Reliance hai, arey, wo to L&T hai." But this is, as Himanshu stated, this is a very transparent platform. Anybody can be benefited by using this thing. So the most, the highlighting benefits are like transparency. As I said, like whenever you deal with a counterparty, you never know. Like in terms of FX market, when you deal with a bank, you don't know what are the pricing actually trading or the bank's cost for the bank. If you want to sell your export remittances for say 3 months from now, so basically 3 months forward you want to sell, if the market price is 74, bank quotes you 73.80, you don't know whether actually the price is trading at that or not. I have seen many instances where the client has argued with the bank, like CNBC is showing us 74, you are offering us 73.80. So there were some instances I have seen wherein the banker has told the client, okay sir, book on CNBC. So the client is bounded by bank terms and conditions. They have to take 73.80 in that case. Impact cost, obviously, when you book anything and suppose you want to cancel that, so that difference between buy and sell, that is also a very important thing in the market. The bid-ask spread, in a layman language we say. Bid-ask spread is like when you sell something or when you buy something and you go for a counter offer. So that difference also a cost for the parties. So that also need to be taken care in this instrument. Credit agnostic. When I say credit agnostic, it means depending on the volume, irrespective of the volume, irrespective of your size of your company, your relationship, price is same. Like it is only about how much limit you have taken on the exchange. The limit, how this limit been set, I'll take it in the further slide. Direct access, when I say direct access, like in a normal balance, what happens? Any client who wants to book forward, they go to bank, they call, they take the price, then they book. Here, you have the terminal at your mobile, your laptop, or you can call a broker and straight away book it. You need not to wait for a second also. Higher flexibility, you are booking now. If there is something goes wrong on a future date, or even you later you decide to cancel those contracts, you can cancel it immediately. Any point in time, there is no extra charge, nothing. There is no cost at a high transparency. Extended market timing is a major benefit. That's why most of the large corporates are using this instrument. We all know this whole world is struggling since COVID since last 1.5 years. Now RBI has also taken some measures in the recent time, wherein they have curtailed the bank timing, interbank forex timing from earlier, which was 9 to 5. They have curtailed it to 10 to 3:30. That too, after relaxation, it is now 3:30. Earlier it was 10 to 2. So this morning 1 hour when the interbank market is open, and evening 1.5 hour when your banks are not quoting to bank, at that point in time, this is the only platform available in India which is offering those prices. Many large corporate who want to book straight away from $1,000 to $100 million, they are hitting the market. That's why in 2008, if you see the market volume, we started on the day one on 29th of August 2008. NSE currency derivative got launched. That day, the turnover was 280 crores rupees. 280 crore rupees turnover was there. Yesterday, we have done more than 75,000 crore rupees. So in last 13 years, we have got tremendous response from all the SMEs, MSME, but still there is a long way to go to, most of the corporate get benefit out of this product. Structured deal is a thing which, the large corporate also told me, like, your prices are much better than what banks are offering. So banks are depending on their own book, own pricing and everything. Here we have a uniform pricing. Structured deals, it's I would like to take it one-to-one. Anybody who's interested, they can put their request in the chat box. We can take a one-to-one session on the structured deals, how it can be structured on the exchange. So it's a very in-depth process. We need to take it on a different session. So at present, although we have 7 currency pairs available, but I'm going to cover most liquid 4 currency pairs on the exchange, which are the USD INR, Euro INR, GBP INR, and JPY INR. So current market timing for all those 4 pairs are 9 to 5. As we all know, most of the global trades are denominated in USD. That's why we are also not quite distant. We are also doing almost 90% of our volumes in USD INR. Other currencies are remaining 10%. These are the contract specification for INR for currency pairs. So whenever you trade on the derivative contract, it has to be some standardized contract we need to put as per the SEBI guidelines. We cannot just blindly put like anything, whatever you want to trade at the market price. So for USD INR, whenever you trade, the minimum quantity is this 1,000 unit, so 1,000 USD. So that is called one lot. In our exchange, in the exchange convention, it is called one lot, which means you can trade minimum to minimum 1,000 USD at any given point in time. Similarly, for in case of euro, whenever you trade euro INR, it means 1,000 euro. If it is GBP, it is 1,000 GBP, and in case of JPY, it is 100,000. Because everybody knows those who are trading in JPY, and internationally all the prices quoted in JPY, that is for 100 JPY. It means a contract value, if I want to derive for 1 USD INR, if the market is trading at say 74, it means I need to pay 74 rupees for 1 USD, and I have my contract size is 1,000. So it means my contract value is 74,000 rupees. So it means whenever I trade one contract, my turnover on exchange for one contract is 74,000. The tick size is the bare minimum how much I can quote on the exchange. It is a bid ask spread, you can say another way. So the tick size is quarter of the paisa. When I say 74.000, 4 times 0, I mean to say. So 74.0025 is my ticks, is my price. If I want to go one tick above, so that would be 74.0050. One tick down, 74.000. Trading as I mentioned. Another regulation what we have in this kind of product is all the contracts are traded in the monthly cycles. It is not a broken date contract. So if I'm in month of November, so my November end is the first expiry available to me. So if any inward or outward going happening in this month, so earliest contract I can book, that is, if I want to book through monthly contract, that is this month. So similarly, we have all 12-month cycle available, starting from say today we are in November. So November is the first contract till October 2022 is the last contract available. November, December, January, February, like 12 contracts. For a shorter dated contracts, we have for the broken dated or near to the maturity, we have weekly contracts available. So these weekly contracts are getting expired or on every Friday. When I say expired, so if you do not cancel your contract before the maturity of the contract, that contract will automatically get cancelled on a particular day. All monthly contracts get cancelled on a 2 working day prior to your last working day at 12:30 FBL reference rate. The price is also mentioned. We have already disclosed those prices. It will automatically get settled at 20 FBL reference rate at 12:30. Whatever the FBI will release, we will settle at that day's FBL rate. Similarly, for weekly contracts, we have expiry day as a Friday, every Friday, because FBL is releasing those prices on a daily basis. So we take the Friday's reference rate. All the positions, outstanding position, getting settled at T+1 basis. Final settlement means at the date of maturity, whatever your outstanding portion get cancelled at the FPL rate, that will be settled in T+2 basis. All the products, all the contract, whatever position you take on the exchange, that will be settled in INR. It means if you are selling at say 74 and buying at 73.80, so it's a 20 paisa and multiply by number of dollars you have sold. So that is, everything is getting settled in rupee. No foreign exchange will be transferred any of the account. Neither client need to transfer to NSE nor NSE will transfer to the client account. Everything will be settled in rupee, INR only. Now I'll tell you, this is the overall product part. So how it will be used in a business risk management. So now everybody knows, like when you go to the bank, you need to establish certain limits, or you need to give some kind of document to the bank to cover your some kind of exposure, be it export or import, any kind. Okay. So now if you are an exporter, you will pay some exposures to your some document to the bank. You submit, and you will take some position. But on the exchange, we do not take any kind of document. Then what will be having for our risk management point of view? So we take a collateral. So in our language we call it a margin. In exchange convention, margins are being charged before taking any kind of position. That is normally in the range of 2.5% to 3% range. That is all subject to the volatility and many factors, but normally it may go higher also, more than 3%. It may go lower also, less than 2.5%, but it is roughly in the range of 2.5% to 3%. It means any participant who want to take position on the exchange, they need to keep some kind of margin on the exchange. That margin, what all forms can be done, I'll explain you in the next slide. So these are the margins you can keep on the exchange, keep with your broker to participate on the exchange traded currency derivatives. First is cash. You can bank account transfer immediately. Suppose one contract is 74,000 rupees, and the 3%, so roughly 2,200, 2,300 rupees you need to put for taking a position of one contract. So per lot you need to have say roughly 2,500 or say 2,300 rupees per lot. So if you want to book $100,000, so you need to have 2,30,000 rupees you need to put. So that 2,30,000 you can do account transfer, or you can give these three last options for a client. So you can give liquid mutual funds, or you can give any kind of a Government of India securities, which are generally traded among corporate, like sovereign gold bond. People invest in those bonds, T-bills. Many treasuries invest in those instruments, and then Government of India securities as well. Apart from that, hello. Yes. Sorry. Okay. So apart from that, you can give also, you can pledge your equity holdings if you have, so, and other mutual funds also. So all these, cash equivalent and non-cash component attract some kind of haircut. So obviously the cash equivalent carries lesser haircut, and the non-cash, equity shares and mutual fund, because it carries a higher risk, so carries higher haircuts. So the only criteria for distribution in these three is non-cash cannot exceed 50% of the total collateral. Okay, so these are the collateral what we take from, we can accept from the broker, or the broker can take it from the client for participating in exchange traded currency derivatives. Now this is a simple example how it gets the function, how it works, the overall contract. Now suppose today you are an exporter, and you want to sell some, you are expecting some payment on the month end of almost $100,000. So what will you do? And the suppose current price trading at for November month is 74 rupees. So as I mentioned earlier, one lot is 1,000 USD. For 100,000 USD, you will sell 100 contracts, 100 lots. So at 3%, you would require 2,22,000 rupees to put before the trade. pre-trade. It has to be pre-trade. The SEBI guidelines says it has to be there in the client's ledger before he executes the trade. Now, what will happen when you receive your actual dollar from your counterparty against your export order? So, what will happen? Your counterparty or the importer of the goods, suppose you are exporting it to say Korea. So, the Korean party will send those dollars to your bank on that particular day. So, suppose they are sending on 25th or say 26th only. So, what will happen? You will ask your bank to convert those dollars at that day's market price. So suppose I have taken a two scenario in that case. Suppose you are sold at 74 and that day's market price is say 75. What you will do for $100,000, you have locked your price at 74 lakhs. 74 lakh rupees is the notional value of those dollars. What you will do? You will go to your bank. You will ask your banker to convert those dollars at that day's price, which would be 75. So you will receive 75 lakh rupees from the bank, but on the exchange, what you have sold at 74, that price is also now 75 lakhs. So you will incur 1 lakh rupee loss on the exchange. So what will you do? You are gaining 1 lakh rupee in the bank, but you are losing 1 lakh rupee on the exchange. So you need to pay that 1 lakh rupees to exchange. In the other case, what will happen? Suppose the price is at 73. Your bank will convert those dollars at 73. They will credit 73 lakh rupees in your account. You will be benefited by 1 lakh rupees on the exchange because you sold at 74. You bought it. You cancelled that contract on the exchange at 73. So your notional is 73 lakhs rupees on the exchange. So 73 lakh on the bank, 1 lakh you will receive from the exchange. So for you, net notional amount is 74 lakhs only. It means for you, price is locked at 74. Whatever the collateral, initial margin, what you have given, placed with the exchange, as soon as you cancel your position, that will be released. It's a refundable deposit. Either you can withdraw that amount or you can take another position on that amount. You can utilize for your further position. So there won't be anything, any debit from that amount. So that is kind of a security deposit what exchange need to keep. So this is the payoff chart of that example. So in this case, now your price is locked at say 74. This blue line shows your locked price. You are at break even. Similarly, in the opposite case, your in case, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. So all the participants, whomsoever is having, let's say, Forex exposure, I'll request you to pay your full attention to both the slides. One which is already covered by Mr. Vivek and another one is this, where you will be able to know entire flow, how it works. Okay, so, and let's say if you are still having any sort of doubt query, please write down. By end of the session, we will address it. Sorry, Vivek.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So in case of importer, similarly, the only difference in case of exporter and importer is importers always buy dollars, exporters always sell dollars, because exporters will receive on a future day, importer need to pay on a future date. So in a opposite case, you will buy dollars on the exchange. You will be benefited if the price will go up on the exchange, but you will make loss on the bank part. So if the price goes down, you will get you will be at loss on the exchange, but you will be benefited in the bank. In either of the case, your risk is managed at 74, irrespective of the volatility in the market movement. Whatever position you take at the price on the price you are locking on the exchange, your exposure, your notional value is locked at that day's price. So that is the whole idea of risk management. Irrespective of the market movement, you are hedged, you are safe. Whether it goes to the 100 rupees or it goes to the 50 rupees, exporter should not worry if it goes going to 50, and importer should not worry if it goes to 100, or exporter or importer should not be happy if it is going to 50, because you are locking your position. Anything which is not hedged in your books is called speculation. Even taking a 1 minute break, like, okay, we will see sham ko kya hoga, what will the price in the evening, we'll wait for better price, that is also called speculation. Many corporate we have seen, no, this is a speculation, we do not we do not like to speculate in our business, but they will wait for 2 days for the better price. They will not. Okay, so if they are not doing back-to-back hedging, today you are getting an order, you need to hedge it today at today's price. Whatever price you have taken into your books, you need to cover that risk. We have seen many instances wherein company has made profit of say 10 crores and made forex loss of 15 crores. So you are there could be chances. That is why risk management is a very important part of the business. So this is payoff chart of in case of importer. Apart from that, there is many added advantage apart from risk management. So which is a trading platform. So you all the prices for be it spot or your future of forwards and everything will be in front of you. You will get a screen whenever you get registered yourself from a broker. Broker will give you one screen which will be showing all the live prices. Although our website also has all the future contracts prices, but that are delayed. Once you register yourself on the with any of the broker, you will start getting a live prices on their terminal. So if you want to hit the market, you want to book, it's a screen-based trading. You just need to press a couple of buttons and your booking will be done. You want to cancel it, similarly press a couple of buttons, your booking will be cancelled. It's an anonymous order-driven trading platform. When I say anonymous, for you always your counterparty is exchange, and we have we give a settlement guarantee of each and every trade. Suppose you are selling, I am buying. Even if I fail to pay my obligation on a future date, but your whatever you are supposed to receive, you will receive. Exchange will give you from the as per the settlement guarantee mechanism. It is all the trades happening on the exchange are settled. Comes with a settlement guarantee. We have a AAA rated clearing corporation with a settlement guarantee fund of more than 6,000 crores. All the orders happening on the exchange, it is all the orders are getting matched on the price time priority basis. First priority goes to the price. Second priority is time. So suppose two people have put order at the same price. So system will pick up the time. Whosoever put earlier, that order will be executed first. Inbuilt risk management, it comes with the inbuilt risk management. Suppose you are hitting some kind of market. If you want to book $100,000 and or say $200,000, and you have a less margin, you will get an alert from the exchange. Exchange system will not, or the broker system will not allow you to go beyond some kind of limit. Multiple connectivity options. When I say this, so you can log in through your mobile, your laptops. You can call and trade. Multiple trading platform. Not necessarily you can trade through one platform. There are many high-tech platforms are also available. Many people are using machine trading on the currency part. Market information. I'll show you in the next slide how the market information also matters. How much depth is in the market. Direct market access for corporates. Direct market access are required for the high value trades. Like if you want to execute say $100 million, $150 million, so that kind of trade, you need a higher bandwidth. So this is market information kind of a snapshot, wherein it shows how much is the market depth available. It's a slightly old screenshot, but the whole idea is any point in time, roughly around $200 million buyers or 200 million worth of sellers are any point in time available in the market. So all these what you can see here on this part, that is number of contracts available, and this is the best bid. So $237,000 are available. People are ready to buy at this price, and these are the sellers. So similarly, for each and every contract, you will get such kind of a market depth. So best 5 bids and best 5 offers also you will be able to see at what price, how many. Suppose you want to execute say $500,000. So you want to sell. So you will be able to see how much would be my impact cost. अगर वो यहाँ पे consume नहीं होगा, if it will not get consumed at 71.4850, what will be my impact cost? That you can also see on your screen. But whatever the price, irrespective of the quantity, the price would be the same. Now the next question is how much you can take. You cannot go enormous, like whatever you want to take, you cannot take that part. So there is a limit mentioned by SEBI. So that is $20 million or 6% of the open interest. That is roughly, as on today, that 6% is coming somewhere around $500 million. Out of that $500 million, for first $100 million, you do not require to do any kind of documentation or anything. If you intend to cross that $100 million, then only you need to do some kind of one letter you require to give to exchange, which is prescribed by RBI. So that is a very $100 million still is a very big limit. But yes, you can go up to $500 million. There are many corporates who are doing up to that extent. These are the major. Yeah.
Vivek, request you to cut it short.
Yeah, I'm done. So this is the market snapshot. So recent growth in turnover in the open interest of on the exchange, which is quite enormous in the recent time. Higher the volatility we have seen, higher the volumes in futures and options both. So these are the prices. Sometime we have seen in 2019, we have seen one instance wherein RBI has changed some kind of regulations in their books. So there is a huge difference. Many corporates, those who are having lines, they have taken opposite position on the exchange and the OTC to get this arbitrage opportunity. Options, I would not go in depth. So options are also available. Plain vanilla European options are available on the exchange. Exporters and importers are free to receive premium using those option contracts. So unlike OTC, wherein any corporate, any participants are not allowed to receive premium on the OTC platform, but here we are participants are allowed to receive premium. This is a general framework, what I mentioned. There's client level risk management, netting, and MTM, whatever the mark to markets are there, that can be settled in cash. It will happen on a daily basis. Suppose you are selling at 74, today the market closed at 73.80, that 20 paisa multiplied by a number of dollars will be credited to your ledger next day and you can withdraw it. In opposite case, if it is a debit, you need to pay. This benefit, most of the benefit I have already covered. So yeah, that's all from my side. So any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. We will take it in the later part of this presentation. Okay, Manju, thank you.
Thank you, Vivek ji. In fact, I have also got certain questions on with me. So probably by end of the session, we will take it. Now, okay. I will request Ms. Prachi. Prachi ji, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, Prachi ji, you can take over. Now, before Prachi ji take the session ahead, as we have already discussed about, the second part of the session, it's more about our alternative or additional source of fundraising for a good company who's looking forward to move on the ladder from, small to medium and medium to large corporate. So today when we are seeing typically, let's say a company which is starting their journey. So typically what we are doing at the starting, we are taking money from family, friends and all, and using that. Now, once, let's say, initially I want to buy any particular land or take any sort of place on rent and all. So that's where we will arrange a sort of money. Now, after having some basic registration of place in place, we can approach, government bodies where sir have already explained, Gopinath sir, I mean, the government body, they are having different sort of schemes, or you can go to nationalized or private bank as per your convenience. Now, post that, as I told, I mean, when we are looking at a company, whether it is coming at under SME or not, we are looking at a minimum 3 years track record. So let's say post having a 3 years track record where you are looking forward to take again your company at a next level, where you are thinking, okay, I want to unlock the value of my company and I want to leverage it in a better way. So, you might have even heard for your shareholders, moreover for you as a management or for your company. So that we are going to cover in this session. So yes, over to you, Prachi ji. Please take the session ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So first, before starting, I would like to thank BCIC and team along with National Stock Exchange for us Hem Securities Limited to give us an opportunity today to share more information on SME IPO listings. So to begin with, as Himanshu ji introduced you, initially companies just had traditional modes of raising funds. It could be either through banks, that is taking loans till the extent of collateral that companies have, and the second is by friends and family or infusing internal accruals. So in 2012, both say government and SEBI took a decision where medium-sized companies should also get an access to equity. So then they launched SME exchanges. So both Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange in 2012 launched their SME platforms. The BSE SME platform is there, and NSE SME platform is called as NSE Emerge. In all, as on date, there are more than 550 plus companies listed on the SME platform. I'll just share my screen as well. So as on that, there are more than 550 plus companies which are listed on the SME exchanges across the India, out of which 190 plus companies have already migrated on the main board. So basically an SME platform is a backdoor entry to the main board. Now companies do not need to wait for say 3 to 5 years to raise funding or get an access to this public platform. All over, in India, these companies have raised more than 7,000 crores and the market cap is more than 60,000 crores. So to begin with, the basic eligibility criteria for SME platform which was set by SEBI was that companies with paid up capital less than 25 crores can access to this SME exchanges. Now, if a company has a paid up capital less than 10 crore, it can access SME exchange only. If a company has a paid up capital which is between 10 crores to 25 crores, then it has an option to also access the main board. If a company has a paid up capital of more than 25 crores, then they have only option to access the main board. So as Himanshu ji had mentioned about the eligibility criteria, so to refine the quality of companies, exchanges came up with 3 more eligibility criteria. First is a company should be minimum 3 years old. A company should be profitable 2 out of 3 years, and company should have a positive net worth. If I say SME exchange, then when I say the word SME, it is not the eligibility is not the definition of SME. According to SSI unit mentions that there has to be some investment in plant and machinery, or there has to be a certain number of turnover. So that is not a criteria. It is only whatever I just mentioned on net worth, profitability, and the track record of the company. So if we see the numbers, then the SME platform is still at its nascent stage. If you can see the chart, is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So if we see, then we can see from 2012 the platform had got launched. From 2012 in red, we can see number of companies that started getting listed on the SME platform. It increased from 14 to 41 in 2014 to say a highest 145 companies in 2018. And these companies in the right side of the chart, I've shown the quantity, the quantum of funds that they have raised from SME platform. The response of companies that participated on SME platform has increased year on year after seeing the benefits that companies can avail through public listing. So there are certain guidelines that we need to follow when we are regulatory guidelines that we need to follow on SME platform. I will just share those details. So these are the regulatory guidelines that a company needs to follow. First, there has to be a minimum dilution of 25%. That is, the existing holding of the promoter will decrease to 75% approximately. And over and above, sorry.
Actually, I hope you will have to move to the next slide.
Sorry?
This slide says who can list on SME.
Okay, 1 second.
This is first slide. You will have to move to the next.
Now can you see it?
No, not as of now.
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, now we can. Thank you.
Okay. So the regulatory framework says a company has to do a minimum dilution of 25%. That means, in a very simple language, that the promoters, they might be having 100% equity as on date, being a non-listed entity. Their existing number of share from 100% will get reduced to 75%, and there is a fresh issue of share which is given to the public. So that is a minimum dilution that is compulsory. The number of public application will be minimum 50 on SME platform compared to the main board, which is 1000 applications. A minimum 2 years companies have to stay on the SME exchange. Post 2 years, they can migrate on the main board. The process of migrating to the main board is very simple. They just require 1/3 of the shareholders' approval. But during migration, they just check 2 things. That is, a company should have a paid up capital of at least 10 crores and company has a market capitalization of at least 25 crores. So that are the migration criteria. Now, SME platform, they have kept a criteria of trading lots. Say if an investor wants to invest in a SME listed company, then he has to invest minimum rupees 1 lakh or multiple of 1 lakh. So here there will be a lot size of say 1000 share, 2000 share, 3000 shares, and the minimum amount will be 1 lakh or multiple of 1 lakh. So till the company migrates on the main board, there will be lot sizes. Once the company migrates on the main board, the lot size system gets over. So whenever a company, say when you are buying a share of Reliance or Tata, you can buy a single share. But on SME platform, it is a lot size. So now why they have kept these criteria is that whenever, there are some retail investor who frequently buy and sell share, it causes a lot of price fluctuation, which a mid-sized company won't be able to take. So that's why they have kept a criteria of 1 lakh or multiple of 1 lakh. So any investor who invests in SME company is called as informed investor. And they generally invest for a period of more than 6 to 8 months, for a longer period. So that's why they have kept these criteria of lot sizes. On SME platform, it is compulsory for a merchant banker to underwrite the issue to the extent of 100%. So it's like a cover that we merchant bankers give. So it's one of the very good benefit that SME companies get compared to the main board. Now, on the main board, the entire process of the preparing the documentation, which you call as the offer document or the Bible of the company, which mentions about the business of the companies, the entire history of the company, the risk factors. So that draft document of say 300 to 400 pager document is prepared. That is to be submitted to the SEBI in case of the main board. But on SME platform, the stock exchanges are given the authority to give comments on the draft document submitted to the stock exchanges. On SME platform, IPO grading is not necessary.
Prachi,
yeah.
Post listing, I mean, what is the frequency of doing the disclosure? For example, at main board, companies are supposed to do each and every quarter.
Okay.
So is there any sort of relaxation given?
Yeah. So in terms of compliances compared to the main board, there is a lot of flexibility given to the companies on SME platform. So on main board, companies have to provide financial quarterly. But on SME platform, they have relaxed from quarterly to half yearly unaudited. You don't have to publish it on any, say, newspaper or some magazines, but you have to send the same to the stock exchange. The stock exchange publishes the same on their website and the companies publish the same on their website. So that is one of the flexible compliances that has been given. Also, companies need to appoint a full-time company secretary on their payroll. So the company secretary takes care of these. So there is a compliance calendar which is shared by the stock exchange on SME platform, by which the company secretary will be providing details to the stock exchange accordingly.
Okay, thanks.
So talking about the kind of companies that are there on SME platform there are companies from various different sectors. All sector companies you will find, even from different state. We have majority number of companies participating from Gujarat and Maharashtra, followed by other states as well. So you can just see that from textile we have 48 companies, from say IT we have 31 companies, from logistic 19 companies. So it is open for all kind of sectors and companies. Eligibility I've already mentioned. Now speaking about benefits of listing. So first of all, very important benefit that companies get on SME getting listed on the platform is appropriate valuation. So when we say Mr. Mukesh Ambani is richest person in India, it's not because of the asset that he holds, but it's because of the value of the share that he has. So that is what that makes a person richer. So now we all companies have made our balance sheet with the thinking of, say, a taxation model where we don't show the actual profits and we are managing the entire balance sheet. But on SME platform, once a company gets listed, whenever a company has a stronger turnover or a profit figures, then they get a good valuation. So it's time to unlock the valuation of shares. Today, when the company is not listed, their shares do not hold any value. But once a company gets listed, the share becomes like a currency note. They are tradable and they have a lot of value. So company can create a market cap of them, which could be more than the net worth or the book value of the company. So when a company does not pay much taxes and does not show the actual figures, then what happens is the actual net worth of the promoter also squeezes. So the actual valuation of the company cannot be seen in the book, and it is valued at the net worth or the book value. Despite the promoters saying 10-15 years they have given their heart and soul and sweat to the business, but the actual valuation of the company does not get reflected. So either through listing or getting an investor on board only can give rise in the valuation to the company. Then comes the visibility. Say today, whatever business a company is into in India or maybe globally, there may be many peers. But if we see the listed space, then there will be very limited set of companies which are there. So if there is some investor, maybe he wants to invest in a particular company or wants to be part of the business, when he searches it online, then he will only get, say, companies which are listed. And in unlisted space, which page our name comes online, we don't know. So we miss out on that visibility. And creating visibility leads to branding and credibility. Now, today, we know that, Reliance is listed today and it has created a very wonderful brand. And tomorrow, even if Reliance come with Reliance Retail, then people will surely invest in IPO of Reliance. So that is the power of branding that companies have created. Now, it also leads to credibility. Say, today, if companies are exporting, so if it's a listed entity, then there is a trust factor that is created, okay, that this company is listed, with whom we are dealing with, and the company has a corporate governance at place. So, yes, we can consider this company first. Also, for those companies who are into, say, government, they are into tenders, and so government also consider these company, give them first preference being a listed entity. So along with credibility, and there are a lot of benefits that listed companies get from banks as well. So being in a listed entity, banks consider attractive interest rate on the loans. So if you already have a loan or if you want to apply for further loan, banks do consider interest rate. Now, since your shares, which have become like a currency note, after some point of time being listed, when there is a good liquidity, companies can also pledge their shares as additional collateral to banks. So this is also one of the avenues which opens up when a company gets listed on the stock exchange. Now, going forward, there are also benefits with regards to tax. Share transfer also becomes very convenient once a company is listed. Say, going along, if a company wants to, attract some good talents in the industry, then being a listed entity, there will be a lot many people who want to be part of a listed entity. So it is easy to attract good talents in industry as well as to retain employees. Being industries with higher attrition rate, ESOPs can be issued to the companies. So in future, if companies look forward for some joint ventures or some mergers and acquisition deals, it is not necessary to do all the dealings in cash or other collaterals. Rather, a company can do the entire transactions in shares. So you can make shares as that collateral where you can do exchange of your deals, or you can get a strategic partner. You can give them certain amount of equity when you want to go ahead in M&A transactions. So there are lot many modes of or lot many benefits opens up for the company once it gets listed on the SME platform. So the entire process of listings takes around 2 to 3 months maximum. Yeah, Himanshu ji.
Prachi, sorry to interrupt. Actually, I just received one question.
Okay.
So thought probably this will be the right time to ask.
Okay.
Can you give an example how this value creation works? Because we kept on talking about value creation. So let's say a company got listed. So what is the how through value creation as a promoter director, what is the benefit I can see?
So so what happens is, so as on today, the company, if it is looking forward to come up with an IPO at 25% dilution, then how a company can create a valuation is, for example, say today I did a IPO size of say 10 crores, and maybe I had a profitability of around say 2 crores, and that time I had a net worth of say 10 crores. So when I got listed, say I took a multiple of 10. Okay, that is P multiple, price earning multiple. So 2 into say a profitability of 2 into a multiple of 10 makes it a 20 crore of valuation with an IPO size of 5 crores. Okay, let's take this figure of 5 crore IPO. Now next year, for example, a company has shown a good growth in turnover, and the profitability of the company was 5 crores. Then even the PE multiple, depending on the industry demand and supply, increases. So say from 10 it became 12. So 5 crore of profit into a multiple of 12 makes it a 60 crore valuation against the net worth of 15 crores now. So net worth 15 crores against a market cap of 60 crores. Now say in the third year of listing, company again did a very tremendous growth, and company was had a strong turnover, and again a bottom line say profit after tax of around say 10 crores. The PE multiple will also increase. So just take a ballpark figure of 15. Then the market cap of the company becomes 15 into 10, that becomes 150 crore, whereas the market cap of the company will be the net worth of the company will be 15 crores. So against 15 crores, 25 crores of net worth, company has created a market cap of around 150 crores. So this is the magic of market cap. The good performance a company does, there is a benefit of valuation. So maybe at say 150 crore or say 200 crore, company can also further dilute their equity to raise a good quantum of funds. Himanshu ji, am I clear on this part, or you want me to speak on something additional with regards to the same?
No, good enough. In fact, further to that, if there will be any question, we can take it later. So you mean to say, let's say today, if I'm coming up with IPOs at SME platform with an IPO size of 5 CR or 10 CR, and so further to that also through exchange platform, let's say after 1 year or 1.5 years, I'm again getting some project for which again I need fund. So I can further go for, a fundraising?
Yes, you can do an FPO for the public offer. So minimum 2 years on the SME platform, while migrating also to the main board, you can keep a strategy, you can dilute some more further equity from the 75% dilution.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah. So the entire process of getting listed on the stock exchange takes 2 to 3 months of time frame. For this, it is very important to select a SEBI registered merchant bankers. So the role of the entire merchant banker will be to get companies on board and help them in the entire process of fundraising. So what happens is, for example, a company appoints a merchant banker. The merchant banker conducts a due diligence in the company, which could be financial due diligence, a legal due diligence, and a secretarial due diligence. Now, financial due diligence is where a peer review auditor is also appointed, where they do restatement of financials of past 3 years. So here, SEBI gives a chance to companies that there could be certain entries which were previously not rectified properly in the books of account. That can be rectified and can be restated, and you can be given in the offer document. So financial restructuring is this. Then you have secretarial due diligences and legal due diligence. Legal will be say litigations on the company, by the promoter, by the company. So all these litigations all these litigations are part of the legal due diligences. And there is a secretarial due diligence. They are like all the Companies Act or all such legal regulation that companies are abided by the company. So all these are given in the offer document. So it's a 300 to 400 document which gives a detail about the company, business of the company, financials of the company, about the promoters, about the group company, objectives of the issue, why a company wants to go forward for funding, where they want to deploy these funds. All these details are given in the offer document. Then this offer document is filed with the stock exchange. The stock exchange goes through the same and gives the comment. Then there is a final offer document that is prepared, and then it is filed with the stock exchange as well as ROC. Once the final approval is given, a company has a go ahead with the opening of the IPO. Then its shares get listed on the stock exchange. And post the company gets listed on the stock exchange, there are post listing compliances that need to be followed. In this entire process of getting listed on the SME exchange, after that there is a hand holding done. So the role of the merchant banker does not get ended once the entire process of listing is done. It is still, or it will be there even when the company migrates on the main board. So we do a hand holding where we help companies with their investor relationship or public relationship, where we market the company a lot to the investor. We tell them about the company, what are the upcoming products the company is expanding into, and we also do a hand holding on their financials. We help them with a strong incorporating a strong corporate governance. So it is very important to be as a partner with the company in their growth journey. Yeah, so I had mentioned you about financial due diligence, legal due diligence, and secretarial due diligences. So there are a lot of apprehensions companies have, when they want to decide whether they want to go with SME IPO or not. So there are some misconceptions like, should we go for a private equity or SME IPO, or do we get the right set of valuations on the SME platform, or is there a threat that if I get listed, then say there could be someone who may start acquiring more and more of shares in the public domain. So there are many misconceptions that companies may be having when they want to evaluate if SME IPO is the right option for them or not. But trust me, these are, as I've rightly given the name, apprehensions, or say these are like, this has never happened as on now. There are more than 550 plus companies listed, and none of them we have seen such type of acquisitions, takeover threats that have happened. SME exchanges are still on its nascent stage. With stock exchange, we are trying to meet more and more companies and trying to spread awareness about the SME platform. Yeah, so I think Himanshu ji, if there is anything specific you want to know from me on SME platform, you can let me
know. Nothing more, Prachi ji. Moreover, you have covered just one thing. So let's say we are aware normally as a company, if I'll ask you, normally we are aware, okay, as a proprietorship, if I'm moving towards partnership, or partnership if I'm moving towards private limited, so what is the required disclosure or so? What am I supposed to do? But let's say when we are moving from private limited, because it is always there, as you rightly told, there is a disclosure and all which is required, and that too, documents are safety.
Himanshu ji, your voice is not audible. Can you please repeat?
So, what is the? Am I clear? Hello.
Yeah, Himanshu ji.
Yeah, Prachi ji, I'm asking. For example, I am having a private limited company, Himanshu Private Limited. Okay. Now, if I'm moving from private limited to getting myself listed. Okay. So, what is the major change? Because proprietorship to partnership, partnership to private limited, till that journey it is very much clear. Okay, but although you have already covered, okay, let's say half yearly submission and all, but again, if you can a bit of emphasize on that point, okay, these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points in addition to what I'm already doing, I will have to take care.
Himanshu ji, your voice is breaking. Actually, the last part I couldn't hear clearly. 4 to 5 points on?
I mean, major changes on compliance side when I'm a listed company in compared to the private limited company.
Okay, so there are not much compliances that needs to be followed being a private limited company or an unlisted company as of now. But when a company gets listed, then there are certain compliances which increases. That is, first of all, as I mentioned, we need a company secretary on a full-time payroll. Then there is a independent board of directors. Say 1/3 of the board should be independent directors. So we look that what is the current composition of the board, and accordingly we ask the company to structure the independent directors. Then you have whenever a company is having a board meeting, the intimation of the same has to be given to the stock exchanges. So these are to control price sensitive information. Say if a company gets a good export order and when they have a board meeting, the same has to be communicated to the stock exchange immediately, so that whenever there is an increase in the valuation of the company, it is officially and on the portal. So these are the certain more compliances that increases. Remaining everything remains same as per LODR.
Okay, and one more thing, you being a merchant banker, you are the right person to answer this point. Roughly, for example, today I have decided that I want to list or explore this listing opportunity. So there are two parts to this question. First is, if I want to just check whether my company is in a right shape to go ahead for listing or not, as a merchant banker, are you going to charge anything? Second one, if everything is done, so if I'm signing, for example, if I'm asking you to proceed for your documentation and all, how much time it is going to take?
So, companies, what they can do is they can speak to me one-to-one. They can share with me their financial details. Let me go through the past financials of the company. And for that, we prepare a customized presentation for the company where we tell them that looking at the current financials, what would be the ideal IPO size? What are the already listed peers and where does this company stands among their listed peers? So we share all those details, but we don't charge anything for that. We only charge once the company is on board, when the company decides, okay, we want to go ahead with Hem Securities on for public funding, once they sign the mandate. Okay. So that is one part of your question. Now to answer the second part of your question, that is what all details are. Sorry, can you just repeat the second part of the question, Himanshu?
How much time it will take? Let's say you are signed.
So once we sign the mandate, say a month or 1.5 months goes in preparing the offer document. And by say maximum, depending on the documentation of the company, if they are at place, and within 2 months, we can file the offer document with the stock exchange.
Okay, so tentatively it is like as you rightly told, depending on the documents, some 3 months, 3 to 4 months should be a good amount of time for my company to get listed.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's say after giving you asking you or signing, let's say some agreement with you, and let's say because of some reason some documents are not available or documents are not in place. So do you have any process that I will have after signing, I will have to complete the process within 6 months or so, or there is a flexibility for me to take my time
Yeah,
to prepare everything?
during the process of collating the documentation that is available with the company, which are part of the offer document that we merchant bankers prepare. So there is a possibility where, say, companies did not prepare some minutes, or maybe there are some certificates which are pending for the approval. So during this process, we also ensure that these processes are completed, and say then the timeline could exceed a little bit. But once the offer document of the company is filed with the stock exchange, company has entire 1 year to take a decision when they want to open the IPO.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's it from my side. The questions which I had. Participants, if you are having any questions, you can put it into the chat box. Mr. Vivek, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Vivek ji, just a couple of questions to you. See, still in your example, as you have referred that there are lots of companies or like Tata, Wipro and all, they are, or large corporate who are using this particular platform to hedge their forex risk. So let's say if there is any minimum cap, let's say I'm having some company where my turnover itself is, let's say, 4-5 CR. Okay, and I'm having exposure in even in lakhs. Can I use hedge those exposure through exchange platform or not?
Yes. So the quantity wise, the minimum what you can do is 1000 USD, which is one contract or one lot. Secondly, there is no cap on the participation and entity wise, basically. So the regulators have permitted an individual can also do, because a proprietorship firm is not a private limited, not the their LLP or the public limited company. Proprietorship company can do. Individuals can do, because anybody can have a foreign exchange exposure. So somebody might have to go out for on a certain date for some kind of vacation, or so they can hedge their currencies also on that platform. And there is nothing like specifically. Yes, the only thing is NRIs as of now are allowed only for the hedging purpose.
Okay, so you mean to say, let's say when you are saying 1000 USD, so let's say keeping, let's say, 74 as a USD NR rate, so 74,000 or 75,000 is the minimum amount which if I want to hedge today, that's the minimum amount I can hedge.
Yes.
Okay, and it has to be, so let's say minimum is 75. Can I do 76 also, or there is certain lots?
So multiple of 1000 USD.
Okay, you mean to say either I can do 74,000, let's say keeping 74,000 as a rate.
So rather than this, so rather than this counting the notional, we would like to put it like a number of USD, the foreign currency you want to hedge.
Okay, got it. Fair enough. And Vivek ji, you told, I mean, here for if I want to hedge anything, okay, so let's say I'm a SME company. Obviously, as you rightly told, okay, there is a good transparency which I can expect. So if I want to hedge, but you rightly told, for hedging, I have to give you margin. Okay, so roughly what is the margin amount I am supposed to give? That is my first question. And second one, let's say today I want to hedge for, I'm expecting my payment, okay, in a month of December itself, just after 1 month, for example. So today I have given you margin for X amount of money. And when can I withdraw it? If I want to withdraw it, is there a process, or what is the time?
So basically, yeah. So basically, there are two kind of margins we take, or rather involved in the whole process. One is the initial margin, which is a deposit. It will be, you need to have that initial deposit before putting the trade. It will be blocked till the time your trade is outstanding in the market. You can only withdraw after the cancellation of your trade. If you do not have any outstanding position linked to that margin, you can withdraw it. Other thing is your mark to markets. So any mark to market gains. So suppose you, in our example, we sold at 74. Any mark to market gain, when will be at gain? When the price of dollar rupee will go down if you are selling. So any gain will be settled on T+1 basis. You can withdraw it.
T+1, which means transaction.
Which means that the transaction date +1 or the settlement date +1. So when I say settlement date, so suppose today you have sold at 74. It closed today only. It closed at 73.80. So during the day you made a gain of 20 paisa per dollar. That gain, computed with the number of dollars position you have taken, that will be credited in your ledger on the next day. Next day, if you do not withdraw that 20 paisa, and further you made a gain on outstanding positions. So next day market closed at 73.50. It means from that 20 paisa plus 30 paisa you have made, so you will get you will be credited with another 30 paisa on next day. So your total ledger balance will be at positive 50 paisa. So if you want to withdraw that on a daily basis, you can withdraw, or you can withdraw in a lump sum.
Okay, fair enough. So Vivek, just last question to you is, let's say I'm not sure, I'm expecting that my payment will come in 1.5 months or so. I'm expecting my payment will come on 20th of December. So when I'm hedging at your platform, will I be hedging on for the month, December month, or for 20th of December?
So Himanshu, there are two ways to deal with it. If you want to cover it if you have a full certainty that your payment will come definitely on 20th or by 20th, so you can go for either a weekly contract, the nearest maturing weekly contract, or the month-end contract, because you might be expecting your payment might come between 20th to 26th, anytime between the December month has expired on 29th of December. So you are expecting your payment to arrive anywhere between 20 to 29. So what you can do, you can take position till 29. You can cancel any point in time. So if you that the payment you were expecting on 25th or say 20th, it might come next week also.
Right.
Not today, not tomorrow, next week also, much before your expected date. So you can cancel in next week also. So there is no limitation on booking and cancellation on exchange.
Okay. And as you rightly told, the day when I will cancel it, I can withdraw whatsoever margin I have given.
Next day.
Basis on your M2M, you told.
Yeah, so it's basically the withdrawable thing would be next day.
Next day. Okay.
Yes.
And if my M2M mark to market is positive, I do have an option to withdraw it.
Yes.
Fair Vivekji. So thank you. Thanks a lot. So participants, if you are having any more questions, feel free to put it in chat box, or Rupaji, if we have an option to unmute and ask, we can do that. So Rupaji, am I audible?
Yes, it's clear. It's clear.
Okay. So ma'am, that brings us at the end of the presentation. If we don't have any further questions, if there is any option for participants to unmute themselves, if they are willing, they can mute and ask their questions.
Is there any participants who want to seek any clarification? The panel is willing to address your questions. One question I had to Prachi is, what will be the cost impact of the IPO for an SME?
Okay, so the IPO consists of two types of cost. One is the fixed cost and one is the variable cost. Now the fixed cost is the process cost, where you have fees which includes the stock exchange fees, the fees paid to the legal lawyer, the fees paid for printing of certain quantity of prospectus, the fees paid to peer review auditor, and fees paid to the merchant banker. So this cost is around say 35 to 40 lakh rupees. Then there is a variable cost, which is called as fundraising cost, that we charge on, say that could be say between 6 to 9% depending on industry. what segment the company is into. So these are the two costs which are involved in the entire IPO process. Overall, if you see, it could be say 8 to 10%.
8 to 10% of the
IPO size.
It's a reasonable amount. Only thing is the MSE or SME should really have that in mind and then go. And what happens if the issue doesn't get subscribed? Since you have an underwriting, they will take care of it.
So, sir, as a merchant banker, we have done more than 60 IPOs, and none of the case it had happened that there was a possibility of a shortfall during opening of IPO. So we make sure with our clients on board that all the companies are oversubscribed. So there is it has never happened with us, at least, that there was a shortfall in oversubscription figure. So we do 100% underwriting.
Okay, and Om Prakash sir, just to add what Prachi rightly told, as per SEBI guideline, 100% underwriting is compulsory. So there is no question of IPO getting undersubscribed at SME platform. So it's a regulatory norm. So let's say company is willing to raise 5 CR or 50 CR. The merchant banker underwriter, they will make sure that IPO has to be fully subscribed.
Okay, I think there are no questions as such in the chat box. I think we should be able to conclude the session. Rupa, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, can we conclude the session, or there any formalities to be done? Yeah.
Yes, sir. We can conclude. Before that, on behalf of BCIC, we once again acknowledge the support of National Stock Exchange of India and the distinguished speakers for addressing at this session. As a token of our appreciation, we would just like to play a video thanking you for your address to our members. Please be online.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, once again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So
Thank
on
you very
behalf of
much, participants, for your time.
BCIC, I thank the speakers, Mr. Gopinath. Himanshu, you have been behind us for maybe 2 months, I believe. So we were able to make it because we had a lot of other issues coming up and intervening holidays. So we were able to make it. Thanks, Prachi, for giving a beautiful insight on the various aspects of the IPO, the due diligence, the PowerPoint presentation was amazing. It's very simple to understand as well. And Vivek, for giving various options available, which I think we will a separate discussion on all those things. And it's really an eye opener. I think let's get that again. Have another session on that. Many of us do not know. Like Himanshu was asking typical questions. One has to really sit back and understand. I believe all the finance guys should really have a discussion with Mr. Vivek. Thank you for this wonderful interaction section, and it's really an eye-opener for us and a very valuable feedback and support you people have given. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.